Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Micha and I'll be your host today. So today we'll be taking a look at how we can rethink financial consolidation. So we'll check the accounting shortage and how that can affect us. We'll take a look at the process of financial close and the challenge of supporting this process with a software. We will also try to paint the interdependencies of these challenges, and we'll take a look, or rather ask ourselves the question whether financial close departments are an opportunity for organizations to evolve. So you have probably seen when registering for this webinar that this is actually a part of the 3 webinar mini-series, or that's what we're calling it. And so part 1 is what I mentioned now, so what we'll be taking a look at. Then in the second part, we'll take a deep dive into how we can actually improve financial close consolidation. And then in the third part, we'll see how we can make an IT project successful. With this, we come to the agenda, so you can see it on the screen. Number 1, introduction is what's happening right now. Then we'll take a look at the case for change in financial close, so the accounting shortage. Then understanding the consolidation function, so take a little bit a look at what people in consolidation do. The road map to modernization, so we'll see how tools and softwares are evolving and how we can be supported by them. Then how this transformation can be achieved, and we'll touch point on AI and check what's next. So like I said, my name is Micha. I'm a CCH Tagetik consultant at the company Nulta, and we specialize in Tagetik implementations from financial consolidation modules to financial planning, Solvency II, GMT, ESG, whatever. And we have operations and projects all over the world. Jumping right into the topic itself. So it does seem like accountants are getting rarer by the year, and the CPA Institute published a study in 2023 showcasing that from 2016 to 2021, there was a 33% decrease in signage rates for the exam. And that number then fell by another 7% in 2022, marking the all-time record low. And we know that that the CPA Institute is more of a US, UK type of thing, but we see the same situation here in Europe. And when I heard that, I was thinking, wow, is accounting not cool anymore? Because we certainly think it is. And I did what any sane person would do, so I asked Google. And this is on the screen, you can see those questions that pop up when you ask Google something. And you can see that people are having worries about whether accounting will be replaced by AI. And we'll check later in the webinar whether we think that's the case. And then they're asking, why do so many accountants quit? What kind of person likes accounting? Is accounting a nerdy major? And things like that. So almost offensive at that point. And there are a couple different theories why that is. One is that generally the youth are not going for numbers-related career paths that much anymore. And the other one is that they're going for flashier jobs like private equity or venture capital. And the scary part about this is that not only are less accountants getting output from schools, but actually the gap is closing from both sides. So the CPA Institute again states that 75% of charter holders will be retired in the next 10 years. And in the EU, CFOs agree, 12% are even stating this accounting as the number 1 shortage. So this means that there's not enough accountants output to keep accounting afloat. And the question is, do we have the talent? Do we have the people? And do we have a system for those younger accountants to step up into the shoes of their senior colleagues? So what even happens in consolidation? The main, or I wouldn't say the main, but certainly the first challenge is data collection. And in many companies, we see a very rigid system where there's a group accountant sitting at the desk somewhere, waiting for SBU, Strategic Business Unit, to deliver the balances and the intercompanies. And this is done by mail. So for us, immediately red lights start flashing. First thing, the group accountant needs to wait for all the balances to come in. Okay, they can check the grouping to the or the mapping to the group chart of accounts. They can do a little bit of preliminary checks, but they need to wait for everything to come in. And then if something is wrong, they need to send the email back. So there's an email barrier between the SBU accountant and the actual group accountant. And once they send back this Excel and they change something, do we mark it as version 2? Do we use that flashy Excel yellow to communicate what was changed? So we have these kinds of challenges. We don't have audit proofness. We have SBUs excluded from the process. And those are all things that can be improved. So with data collection, I usually use the rock metaphor. So you can collect the rocks by hand, by wheelbarrow, or you can have a nice, shiny, fancy truck. And we'll take a look at what that means in future in this webinar. So on the bottom of the screen, you can also see a couple of biggest challenges that companies face with consolidation. And the biggest one listed here is verifying data in the reporting process. So I didn't mention that earlier, but there can be a lot of checks in systems like this. Aggregating and preparing data from multiple systems. So those are the rocks that need to be collected. So we can do that via Excel, so we can have some APIs, ETLs, different functionalities. Affording the cost of technology and other resources. And handling changes from regulators from external audits. And here, when we have an audit-proof system, so with data checks, with user accounts, with workflows, shouldn't be a problem to suffice the external audit. After this is all compiled, the accountants do some, or the group accountants do some fancy things, right? They do adjustments, they do IC eliminations, they do FX investments, and then they finally issue the consolidated statement report. And what's important here is that this is essentially a chore, right? It gets done, it has gotten done, so it will always get done, right? But here we are today asking the question whether that will be the case in future. I mentioned a little bit, or I talked a little bit about Excel. And firstly, I want to say that Excel is probably the greatest thing that has ever happened to us as humans. There have been numerous occasions when we were packing for the seaside with the friends and everyone was saying, well, we need this and we need cereal. And I just say, look, shut up, let's open an Excel spreadsheet, let's get it under control, and then we can map it out, right? But its greatest feature, so basically flexibility or building whatever you want, can also be a problem. So what we see in companies sometimes is that there's this Excel sheet that gets expanded and linked with other sheets, and then VBAs get used in it, and then sooner or later you have some Excel monstrosity that only Marinka knows how to operate. And here, immediately, we see problems. So we have key person dependency. We have no audit because so many people can work in one sheet and there's no data about who's done what. So we have no traceability and no accountability. And then we have the versions that we mentioned before. So version 1, version 2, version 5, final for real. And it also can pose performance issues. So if one of you or if some of you try to work in an Excel with 80k rows and a bunch of columns, you know it's not a perfect tool to handle that kind of challenges in. And also, I want to mention that our philosophy when it comes to Excel is exactly that. So not to abolish it, but to use it where it makes sense. So it does make sense to have some database features in the tool and then the Excel interface and Excel flexibility to handle reporting. The other option is legacy systems. So what I mean by this is generally tools or systems fall on a line from legacy to modern. And what separates the two usually is that the modern has a clear roadmap, so a clear understanding of what they'll implement, what kind of features they're rolling out next. These days, usually something starting with AI. And when thinking about a modern tool, a good place to look at is the Gartner Magic Quadrant. So you can see that on the screen. You have the completeness of vision, so the roadmap, and then the ability to deliver. And CCH Tagetik, the tool that we work with, is a part of Wolters Kluwer that you can see in the leaders quadrant, so in the top right quadrant. And legacy tools themselves, what they can cause is firstly compatibility issues with newer tools in the organization, and they can have a lot of legacy processes. And what I mean by that is that there were certain things done at the time, so maybe we did something that we got an external to do something, and as this piled up, we can have a lot of inefficiencies. Another thing that can happen is that these legacy systems are very IT dependent. And what that means is that I wouldn't say data, but the configuration is siloed in IT. So they are basically the owners, but the users of this configuration and data are actually accountants, right? So if you have the silos between those, it can pose quite some risks, and modern tools usually have features to bridge that gap. So let's now check the interdependencies of these challenges, or what does that mean for us, so we can see it on the screen. And we can see that on one side we have this very rigid system, so this Excel that can be dependent very much on one person, and this by itself is already bad because people can leave, they can go sick, and we have the accounting shortage. So paired with this, we statistically do not have replacements for these people. And then paired with sometimes legacy systems, the systems are passive, so they're not investing a lot in features that would be lowering the burden on key individuals, because even if regulative doesn't become more complex, the economy works in a way that companies grow, and so does the workload. Talking about AI, I've mentioned it a couple times now. We have to touch on it because it wouldn't be a 2026 webinar without it. And when I'm bringing up all these AI features, talking about modern tools, a fair question to ask is, but won't AI replace the accountants that we're missing out on, or that are not getting output from schools? And the big four, at least for now, certainly do not agree. So they said that they will not be looking to replace human accountants, and that they will actually use AI to supercharge their positions. So to help them with research, regulation analysis, quality control, and faster closings. So actually using software with AI to support, but not replace accountants. And on the right side of the screen, we can see a graph. The graph shows accountants split by low, medium, and highly educated ones. So percentages, it sums up to 100. And it compares 2020 to 2030. So it does not compare the actual number of accountants or the demand for accountants, but just the split. What's interesting in this graph is once we look at the trends. So the low and medium educated accountants demand is going down, but the highly educated accountants demand is going up. And these are the accountants that are actually performing financial consolidation. So if we think about AI, AI can be mostly used for low and medium tasks. So it makes sense that the demand for these accountancy is going down. But will this help us in the talent crisis? Actually, it might not, because it destroys the clear career path, because there are no low and medium level jobs. So it can actually erode the talent pool. So what we stress here when thinking about AI is invest in tools that have modern features. So get the best weapons for your accountants to battle the financial close, if you will, but you still need quality talent to man the stations. Now, we said that we'll talk a bit about how we can rethink the consolidation. And rethinking consolidation can be quite challenging because if you think about the planning, so we can plan more granularly, have better BI, and this has to do with the contents. But with consolidation, it doesn't have to do with the contents, because the content itself is mapped out in the regulative. We need to think about the process a bit. So the challenge of consolidation, and what we can do, is we take a step back, we take a look at how we're doing things now, and if we're doing them great. If not, we can change some stuff, and then we can take that process and map it into a tool that will get us features. So what I'm talking about maybe can be audit trails, workflows, so things that guide the users, and actually it pushes the process to more people. So now we can include people from SBUs, we can give some tasks to some more junior accountants, and we can actually spread it across the company. And what this means is that we make it organizational knowledge, not someone's personal set of skills. So now I was mostly talking about risks and risk mitigation, but at the beginning of the webinar I said that we'll take a look or ask ourselves the question whether financial close departments can be an opportunity for us to evolve. And this is what we're showing on the screen now. So we can see that when financial close departments are stuck in close, they're actually closed off to the other business. And it means that strategic initiatives can go down or they can be non-existent. And if we can lower this time, it means we can jump onto more opportunities. And we know that out there in the business world, opportunities do not wait for the perfect time to present themselves. Rather, they present themselves at the imperfect time. And this paints consolidation or financial close as an actual strategic process with strategic benefits if we manage to better it. Now, how do we do it? So, like I mentioned earlier, we are an implementer of CCH Tagetik, so that's what we use, or that's our modern tool of choice to solve these challenges. And what we can do is we can take data from any source, whether is it an ERP, Excel's, manual data entry, we pull it into the platform, and there we're already like on a group level, so everyone is working standardized group way, supported by workflows. We have group chart of accounts, so everything's already in those blocks that you need for them to be able to compile them together. And we have a single point of truth system that basically means that once a number is entered into a data entry form, it's taken into a database, and anytime we pull that number, it's that exact same number. It's not 10 numbers in 10 Excels on 10 emails. We also have financial logic, so the system knows what it means to eliminate minorities or journals, and we can also post it to any target. If you remember the quadrant from before, CCH Tagetik or Wolters Kluwer is also investing a lot into new features, so a clear roadmap. And they have AI mapping, so auto mapping features. They have Ask AI, which is essentially a small chat GPT that runs only on your data for the CFO or for the leaders to make sure that they can talk to their data and get results. So this is the platform that we choose to solve the problems mapped today. With this, we come to the end, and I would like to invite everyone to join us for part 2. So in part 2, we'll take a deep dive and talk about how we can actually better the process. So today we touched base a bit on the concept, but then we'll go into detail. So you're welcome to join or to invite your colleague that actually works in a financial close department if you're not that person. And then in the third part, so the final part of the webinar, we will take a look at how we can implement an IT project successfully, or how we do it and what kind of interesting thing we can share with you on that. So with this, I would like to thank you for joining, and I also invite you to write to us if you think we can help you with anything, or if you're interested in anything more in detail what was said today. So thanks for joining, and see you in part 2.